This is my own habit building system which I myself have built, and hence you haven't seen that before in any books or YouTube videos. In this video, I will talk about each of these elements and how you can use them to build better habits and track them more effectively. Also, I will talk about how to calculate your score of performance in a desired time period, and by doing so, you can track and compare your performance in different time periods. So let's talk about the first part of this habit building system. For example, suppose that I want to build a reading habit. For me, if I read for 20 minutes, that is acceptable and I'm happy about it. But if I read, for example, for 45 minutes, that is really awesome and ideal for me. So I call that 20 minutes the satisfying version and that 45 minutes the ideal version. But these versions are not enough. We need to add two other mini versions because sometimes I don't feel like to spend 20 minutes reading. So for me, spending 2 minutes is the minimal effort I can do for reading. And probably I have chosen that number, 2 minutes, because of the 2-minute rule explained in Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I call this 2 minute the minimal version. But again, it is not enough. There are some days when I don't feel good and I don't feel like doing even the minimal version of my habit. So in order to keep the habit alive, I define another version which I call the show-up version. For example, for reading, the show-up version can be opening the book or reading even one sentence from that book. Yeah, you're right, it's kind of cheating. But the whole purpose of this version is to keep the habit alive, even on those days when I don't feel like doing anything. But what about tracking these versions? I prefer tracking these versions using these symbols. Some people may like to assign a color for each version, but in my opinion, there are a lot of drawbacks to doing so. For example, suppose that you have read 2 minutes of a book in the morning, so you have done the minimal version, and hence you want to colorize the corresponding cell using the black color. But what if you read for another 20 minutes later that day? So in that case, you have read for 22 minutes. And now it's the satisfying version. So you should change the color to blue. So as you can see, it's not a good idea to assign colors for tracking different versions of your habits. But what about this scenario? Suppose that I've read a newsletter or listened to an audiobook. Do you consider that as a part of your reading habit or not? Well, I myself prefer doing so because it gives some flexibility to my system. So these are the equivalents of each of these versions for these two alternatives. I should mention that this alternative term is inspired by the Elastic Habits book by Stephen Guise. Here are some other examples of defining different versions and different alternatives. But in order to make this system even better and be able to track our progress and compare our performance with other weeks or months, we need to convert these symbols to something numerical. One option is using the minutes you have spent on that habit. But all habits are not measured using time. For example, what about the number of push-ups for the exercising habit, or the number of iteration-based speaking, which I talked about in this video for learning a language, and so on. So as you can see, all habits cannot be measured using time. So we can assign some scores for each version. These are the scores of each version in this system. Using these scores, you need to calculate the average score for each week and write it down in its corresponding column. And if you want to visualize your scores throughout different weeks, you can plot a chart like this which shows your mid-range progress. You can do the same and plot a daily chart, but daily charts are very short term and you may not learn something useful or recognize a useful pattern from it. But for each month, you need to calculate and plot some stuff. First of all, you need to calculate the total score of that month, which you can use later on to compare with other months. And the other one is plotting this pie chart. This pie chart calculates what percentage of those days you have done the show-up version, what percentage of those days you have done the minimal version, and so on. And this can help you to decide whether your behavior is actually becoming a habit or not. Because if a big portion of this pie chart denotes the show-off or minimal version, it shows that you are not building the habit and not taking it seriously. But if you see that, for example, 80% of the days you are doing at least the satisfying version, it shows that it is slowly becoming your habit. This whole tracking was done in my bullet journal. For example, you can track your habits in a section of the bullet journal, which is called the monthly log. but you can do a lot more in bullet journals. If you want to see my specific framework for setting up a bullet journal, you can watch this video which is on the screen now.